Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over the next major patch coming to Lost Ark and the most likely release date for this patch. Now this next major patch that is slated to come out in May is going to be a pretty big turning point for Lost Ark, primarily due to us getting the first real raid of the game and the first Legion raid, which is Valtan, but we are also going to be getting a ton of additional content that I think a lot of experienced players of the game in other regions consider to be the point where Lost Ark starts to get really good. Now I do want to go over a lot of the content that will be expected to come with this patch, but first I want to go over some of the information pointing to a specific release date for this patch that I think is decently concrete into pointing that this next patch will be on May 19th. So first off, in last week's weekly reset patch notes, they gave a kind of disclaimer that a lot of players are going to be noticing that the casual Guardian raid event will be ending on the 19th and that they are targeting the third week in May for the next major content update, but that build is still being developed, so it is not 100% set in stone, but that is the date they are targeting, and the 19th is the Thursday in that third week of May, so that would be the weekly reset, and that would be when they would release any new patches. And then more recently, the community manager Rox replied to a forum post saying, based on what we've seen so far, it is looking like Legion raids will kick off in May. But that is not 100% locked in either, but this is much more recent, 10 hours ago as I'm making this video. So it seems like in almost a week's time, they're still looking at the third week of May to release this next major patch. And kind of a side note, but Rox did also post that the Destroyer will be the revamped version. And the Destroyer is the new class we will be getting in this May patch. And if you don't understand what this means, on the Korean server, there was recently a pretty big balance update to the game that touched most of the classes in the game. And specifically, the Destroyer got some pretty big changes. One of the primary things being that they are getting a taunt, and their kit is getting some pretty heavy changes because this class was considered to be one of the worst classes on the Korean servers and the other regions that this class is released in. And it seems like that this revamped version is a much more playable version for the class. So that is definitely something I would consider to be a plus, that we are getting the up-to-date version of this class when it's released to us in a much better state than it used to be. Now there is a ton of additional content that should be releasing with this patch, just because it really wouldn't make sense for most of this content to not release with Valtan. Now for the officially revealed content, we know we will be getting the Destroyer class, which we just went over. We will be getting Challenge Guardian raids, which essentially are scaled Guardian raids that you do once a week that gives you a ton of resource chests, but you can choose what tier of resources you want out of these. So this is very good for people who don't play a lot of ults because you get a ton of resources on one character per week. Then we should be getting the Desgaluda Guardian raid boss, which will be a 14-15 Guardian raid boss. That is actually a pretty significant jump because this is pretty much the first point in the game that you will be able to get tier 3 relic accessory pieces, which is the rarity above legendary. So it's a pretty decent jump in power. And then we will be getting the Valtan Legion raid, normal and hard difficulty. And the Legion raids are much more bigger, more difficult raids than something like Argus. And Legion raids are essentially what's considered to be one of the main things that kind of saved Lost Ark and brings it to the point where everyone considers it to be a much better game. But there is some additional content that should be coming with this patch because, like I mentioned, it doesn't make any sense for this additional content to not come with the patch, especially since a lot of this other content we're going to be talking about is tied to the continent of South Vern that we already have. So first off, we have these South Vern Chaos Dungeons. So just like all the other endgame continents you unlock, it adds a new section into the Chaos Dungeon tab. So say you go complete Phaeton, there's now a Phaeton tab of Chaos Dungeons, and going up higher levels and higher continents of Chaos Dungeons at a baseline just give you more resources. But also once we get into the first level of South Vern Chaos Dungeons, you start to get relic armor piece drops, and these are the armor pieces that are just used for the tripod rolls on them. So you start to get those, and that's 415 item level to do the first level. And then once you get to the second level, which is 1445, you also start to get relic accessory pieces, which, like I mentioned, is a really big jump in power. Then we should also be getting the Chaos Gate in South Vern. So these are the Chaos Gates that are on all the other continents, where you can do them once a day. You join an instance with up to 30 other players, then you just go kill a bunch of bosses to get the currency to buy more treasure maps, and then you get treasure maps out of completing these Chaos Gates. Then we would also expect to get the field boss in South Vern, which would just give some additional rewards as well, and are usually pretty worth doing. And then something else that I would personally expect us to get, because the Japanese region also got this, is the South Vern Bridge, which, if you don't know what this is essentially a ultra juiced up tier 3 version of the tower, except you're only able to do it once on one character. Instead of being able to do it on all of your alts and get resources on all of your alts, you do it on one character for this, but it gives a ridiculous amount of tier 3 honing materials and is a very big help for getting everybody into the Legion raids. And that's most of the content I would expect to have in this May patch, because like I mentioned, not having a lot of this South Vern content doesn't make sense when we already have South Vern, and then not getting a lot of that, even with getting Valtan, would be very weird. But there's some additional stuff we could also possibly be getting, depending on what events they want to give us, because most likely there will be some events with this May patch. Some of the options would be a power pass up to South Vern, which is something we might get because a destroyer is coming out, and usually Smilegate likes to release power passes or something else to boost up a new character when it's released. We could potentially get some honing buffs, because if I'm not mistaken, on a lot of the other regions, they got those big honing buffs for tier 1, tier 2, and the start of tier 3 with Valtan, so we could end up getting that. There is also a 1390 Express event that the Japanese region also got with South Vern. I don't think we're going to be getting that one because our Express event lasts until June, so I don't think we're going to be getting two of those overlapping on top of each other. But that's pretty much all of the content I would expect to be getting with the May patch. And I do think this patch, if we get most of this stuff I went over, is going to be pretty massive. Just getting our first Legion raid in Valtan is a pretty massive turning point for the game, but then getting all of this other content with that would make this easily the biggest patch added into the Western version of the game post-launch. And I'm very much hoping that they do release this on the 19th. I think that would be a good time for them to release it. And I do hope most of this content, if not all, is going to be released with that patch, because this would feel like a really substantial patch in terms of how much content we're actually getting. But that's pretty much all I want to go over. So subscribe if you want to see more Lost Ark or other MMO videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this upcoming patch. And thanks for watching.